Are we live?
Got you, Ian.
Right. Well, I'll make it over 20 seconds. So, welcome to the Health and Wellbeing meeting. Couple of house rules first. I'm working on a tablet, which means I've got 6 screens I have to keep shooting through. So, if you want to speak, I'll try and get you, but if I miss you, shout at me, please. And I'm sure somebody will explain that I've missed everybody or missed somebody. Bert, you're on the end screen, so if you need to shout, you definitely need to shout.
Not a problem.
Right. So, any apologies? We know.
Yes,
John?
Yes, thanks, Chair. It's John Williams. I'm standing in for Sylvia Burgess, but that's standing for this evening's meeting. Thank you.
Plus an apology
Denise?
from Councillor Jill Waring, the portfolio holder, has also sent an apology. Thank you.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
I'm the portfolio holder.
Yes, you're also here. I think sometimes some of her portfolios at our meeting, she has sent an apology.
Right. Any declarations of interest?
Nope.
I'll take it by that silence. That's no.
No, sorry,
Okay.
I've got my hand up.
Sorry.
Hello.
Yeah, so I can't see. I've only got 4 people on the screen at any one time. So you're going to have to shout up. So,
Okay.
Councillor Moffat, you have a declaration of interest.
Yeah, just on the presentation about the Faith Hate project, just to make it clear to the group that in terms of my role as a councillor, the New Theatre when presenting to this group.
Councillor Moffat, Sue, you keep fading, so we can't hear everything you're saying. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm really sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better, Sue.
I'm terribly sorry. I hope my Wi-Fi isn't too bad. I just wanted to declare an interest, Chair, because when Gender Hate project, I will be presenting about that, not in my role as a councillor, but in my role as an employee of the New Vic Theatre.
Yeah, okay. I have no problem with
Is
that.
that?
Yeah, that'll be okay, Doc, I think.
Okay, thanks.
I don't think
Chair.
anybody else has got a
No
problem with that.
No.
Right, let's get back to the beginning.
Thank you, Chair.
Right. Update from Cabinet, there doesn't seem to be anything. Cabinet members that are here, you've got nothing to say on that, just in case?
No, Chair, thanks.
No, that's okay. Straight on then to number 5, domestic abuse. So, Councillor Moffat.
Sorry, Chair, before we go on, are we not looking at the minutes of the previous meeting to agree that there are...
Oh, sorry. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I've also got bifocals, which means that's not in the right place. So, yeah, any problems with... Hold on. Can we agree on the meeting of the last meeting?
Chair?
Yeah.
Chair, just one observation.
Yes, Tony.
Thanks, Chair. We just to note that we did, in terms of the resolved actions, we agreed that this meeting will receive both a report on domestic violence and a report on antisocial behaviour. And I think it's important to note that we did, I think unreasonably, ask the same group of officers to produce two quite big pieces of work. So can I suggest that we actually defer the report on ASB to a future meeting, so that we can just kind of focus on the DA report that we've got in front of us?
Well, what we've actually done is the antisocial behaviour stuff is going to go for the next meeting. So yeah, you were right. It was two major things, and we'd have probably got stuck down in them. So yeah, that has been done. So when it comes on to work program, you'll probably find that most of it's already done. Okay, anything else on the minutes? Barry, did you have your
No,
hand
just
up?
to say that's okay, apart from me.
Right, okay, let's have a quick look, see if anybody else, or unless they want to scream at me. Nobody wants to scream at me. Okay, right. In that case then, number 5, I think we are, yes. Domestic abuse. So Councillor Moffat, it's over to you. Sue, it's
Councillor Wilkes, is it Kath and myself? Kath, perhaps to do the introduction, like we said. Sorry.
Oh, right.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, Chair. I
so,
think I'd.
Yes.
I think
Councillor
I'd.
Moffat made the suggestion, hadn't she, last time?
No, that's my fault. My minutes have gone all over the place. Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Sorry.
Kath Fox.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm not Sarah Moore, sorry.
I was going to say.
I've had to go onto a second laptop. I've just had technical issues and Sarah forwarded me the invite. So looks like Sarah's twice. Yeah, thank you. You've all had a copy of the report that I won't go through chapter and verse, but just to pull out really the main bits that we wrote the report on 2020. So we've got police figures from 2020, and we've tried to mirror that with the GLOW figures, that is the Children and Young People's contract that we commission at the Borough Council using the LDF funding. You will see that I've spoken about the MARAC work that we've carried on doing in Newcastle. We were chosen as a pilot site originally. All of Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent are now up and running with their own local MARACs, and we've carried on building on the work over the last couple of years. The vulnerability work we've seen that really increase, not just with domestic abuse, but with other areas of vulnerability during the pandemic. And the daily hub and the weekly hub has really grown with the cases that we've seen on there. We've got with us Matthew Ellis and Helen Jarvie, who will be able to touch on the New Era service from the Commissioner's office. And we've also got Becky Murphy, who is from the county and has written on the Safe Recovery project as well. I think that's it really. I don't want to talk for ages on something that you may well have read. So if anybody's got any questions.
Councillor Wilkes, it might be worth just asking if the Commissioner's office or County Council would just like to make any contribution just before members are given the opportunity for any questions, just in case there's anything pertinent that they need to pick out.
Well,
if that helps.
Considering you've just said it, I'll agree.
Thanks.
Chairman, is it worth me just saying a few words?
But figure out who yeah, fire away, mate.
Obviously, I've got professionals with me who are far closer to the domestic abuse agenda in detail than I am, but just to give some reassurance that whilst there have been some real challenges financially this last couple of years, we have maintained and in fact increased the investment into domestic abuse and actually the associated areas around it, particularly perpetrators and assisting people to change their behaviour. I would say that COVID's been an interesting one for the issue of domestic abuse, in that at the very, very start of the pandemic and right the way through to not so long ago, actually, we weren't quite sure in Staffordshire and actually nationally, the figures were really, really weird as to whether domestic abuse had become an even bigger issue during lockdown, or indeed whether it actually reduced during lockdown. And I think the smart money, sadly, is on. There were weird figures in the first place, and there has been significant increases in domestic abuse during the COVID lockdown, and we have found. I've forgotten the exact amount of money, several £100,000 more in order to support individuals who are in that situation. And in fact, government, I have to say, I don't always say this of government have also stepped up and provided extra money for domestic abuse services. But I'm the support act here. I've got the professionals who will go through in some detail, and I'm more than happy to chip in at an appropriate moment, either around money or anything else that you would like me to do so. Chairman.
Right, thank you very much for that. Sarah, who else was it you said that would like to speak?
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. I didn't know if either Helen or Becky might like to speak and just say anything.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah, very much, Councillor Wilkes. It's Helen Jarvie here. I'm the domestic abuse lead in the Commissioner's office and lead for the Commission Service, the New Era contract, which many of you will be aware of. With me today is also Becky Murphy, who is the lead on the commissioning arrangement from the County Council. And as you'll be aware, it is a tripartite arrangement and we are supported by Stoke City Council in terms of the commissioning of the contract. Matthew's given some indication of some of the challenges we faced, I think, around measuring the levels of domestic abuse initially when the pandemic hit. It was particularly challenging because what we saw was many victims reaching out for support through national helplines, and because of a sort of rearrangement nationally, those particular individuals were then directed to make contact with local services themselves. So we were seeing an increase in calls for service through the national helplines, but not necessarily reflected so much in the local service because people did not necessarily reach out locally. So it took us some time, it's fair to say, to try and understand the figures. But what we actually saw in Staffordshire, as Matthew's alluded to, was a very, very slight increase in calls for support during the initial lockdown period. But what we have seen more recently, certainly from about mid-October, November time, is a more sustained increase in calls for support through our collective domestic abuse services. And that is not only New Era, that is Glow, Pathway and Women's Aid in the south of the county. So clearly, some of the comms work that we have been doing has been reaping rewards in that we have a COVID-related domestic abuse forum that I chair that reports into the Resilience Forum across Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent. Through that forum, we have consistent communication with messaging that goes out to victims across Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, calling for them to reach out for support. I think that has gone some way now for people to recognise exactly the services that we've got, and clearly from the figures we're seeing, which is about a 25% increase on calls for support directly through to services, that those people are reaching out and receiving those services that they so desperately need. The COVID work continues through the COVID group that meets fortnightly and is supported by a range of stakeholders across Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent. And as I alluded to, that is then reported upwards through to the Resilience Forum. So in essence, that sets the scene. Certainly we have seen an increase in demand for services. All of the providers have adapted and responded exceptionally well to the increased demand. They have adjusted their service offer accordingly, many of them working online where it's safe and appropriate, and indeed reaching out particularly to young people in safe school settings where it's appropriate to do so. So supporting that, we have maximised every opportunity to put additional funding in to support the services. So the Ministry of Justice has made a number of funding pots available, and the Staffordshire Commissioner's Office has led on work to allocate those funds out to all domestic abuse providers to make sure that they are well able to respond as best possible with that additionality, which in the main has gone towards securing additional staff on an agency basis to respond to increasing demands for support. I'm happy to take any questions on that explanation, or direct any to Becky if there's anything specific that you would like to raise with me today.
Right. Well, is any councillors wishing to speak?
Helena, Chair.
Yeah.
I'd just like to ask Helena, with this domestic abuse that we've got, is there any children against the parents included in this? Because apparently that is escalated in some areas. Has that affected us in any way? I mean, not the normal abuse that goes on, but children against the parents. You don't hear much of that because that is sort of seems to be put on one side. Abuse about men's just started to come out against men. That started to make an impact. But the children against the parents, you don't hear much about it. So where does that fit in with this whole group?
Okay, thank you for that. There are on average about 15 cases per quarter that are referred to our Commission Domestic Abuse Service that relate to child on parent abuse. That has remained consistent through the pandemic, so we've not seen any significant increase. And interestingly, to support that particular cohort, our Commission service next month will be starting a dedicated programme to work with parents called Who's in Charge, to provide support, advice and guidance for those particular individuals. So in summary, yes, it's recognised, it's picked up through the Commission service, but it's not something that we've seen a significant change or increase in throughout the pandemic.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wright, you had your hand up. I managed to see yours.
Thank you. I've just got a couple of questions, really. One, can you hear me?
I can indeed, yeah. Councillor.
Oh, it's been playing up. How long do people have to wait before they get seen?
Obviously, the service, like the New Era service, like all services now, is under pressure in terms of waiting lists. So dependent on the type of service, the nature of the risk, if they are high risk, they're assessed and triaged immediately. If they are of lesser risk, it may well be that after initial support and advice and guidance, they may be waiting up to a couple of weeks for support, dependent on where their service particularly is required. But clearly, we are doing all we can to mitigate the pressures that we see around waiting lists, but it does vary week by week. And as I say, it does depend on the type of support that the individual is seeking.
Thank you. And do you feel that the service is adequate for the people?
I think the service that we've got is absolutely fantastic. It provides a baseline service across Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent. That was our original aim through the provision of funding by Mr. Ellis, and that put in by council and city councils. What we do through the Commissioner's Office is also allocate what we term locality deal funding, Mr. Ellis's LDF funding to districts and boroughs. And if there is a requirement for additionality, they are able to utilise that funding to secure additional resources in each of the local geographies.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Patton.
Sorry, can I just ask one more question?
Yeah.
So, it's along the same lines, really. I was just wanting to ask, the GLOW service, as the contract finishes, doesn't it, at the end of March?
It does, yes.
And what's going to happen then? Or do you think it'll be extended?
Oh, Sarah's just going to...
Me to chip in there. Hot off the press, Councillor Wright, we've been having conversations with the Commissioner's office because I had a feeling this question might come up. And Helen and I are going to make sure that we have got a contingency plan so that there won't be any gaps in service. We don't see that there's any issue with the LDF covering next year. Through our commissioning arrangements as well, I'm pleased to say that we are able to offer an extension to that contract. Kath's been monitoring that over the last 12 months and it's been performing well. It's been exceeding expectations, actually, particularly over the COVID period. We've been really pleased with it. So yeah, subject just to the rubber stamp that we hope we're going to get from the Commissioner's office over the next few days. We'll be looking at continuing that service, which, as Helen has explained, complements the existing New Era arrangements and gives us that additional capacity for our children and young people in the borough. I hope that answers that. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 quick points. I don't know if Miss Jarvie, are you ex-police, Miss Jarvie?
No, I'm not a serving police officer, no.
What I'm looking for is on paragraph 8.1 on domestic homicide reviews, as to whether anyone can say just how useful this has been in domestic homicide. Does a unit getting involved hinder or help the investigation? And then the other point is on paragraph 9.1 on National Specialist Domestic Abuse Services. There's 5 there, 3 of which we don't seem to hear a great deal of as regards results, and that's Mankind, Broken Rainbow and Karma Nirvana. I was wondering if anybody could give us a brief update on those.
So if I could take your first point, if I may, Councillor, to start with. So it was a question around domestic homicide reviews. Yeah. I suppose my interpretation was you were asking whether the New Era service participates in DHRs. Was that correct?
Yeah, basically, just how helpful has it been, and has there been positive results in it?
Well, domestic homicide reviews, as you may be aware, are really led by district and borough authorities. The recommendations that come from the DHRs will come to our Domestic Abuse Commissioning and Development Board that operates across Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, where the New Era service and all our providers are present. Any of the recommendations that come from those DHRs are then allocated out by the chairs of the Domestic Abuse Board, and it may be that there are learnings or developments for the Commission service or indeed for other agencies. So certainly the Commission service plays their part in DHRs and supporting development work or learning as a result of them.
Thank you. Now, the law, I know the law has changed a lot since I retired from the force 20 years ago. Just wondering if anyone got any more up and update, that's all.
Okay, and then your second question was around the different national agencies that are referenced within the report.
Yeah, I'm particularly interested in Mankind, Broken Rainbow and Karma Nirvana. We don't seem to hear much of them or just how useful they have been. Just wonder if anybody can give us a brief update.
Well, I couldn't give you an update on exactly what they provide. I mean, certainly from knowledge, Mankind obviously representing the male sector of domestic abuse. It's something actually I feel quite strongly about personally, and ensuring that the male victims are recognised within the service offer that we have. The Commission service has got dedicated representation to support male victims. And our domestic abuse strategy and action plan clearly reflects all genders. So it doesn't matter whether you're a victim of male or female, those individuals are supported regardless. In terms of the other organisations, happily, if you'd just like an outline on what they represent, I'd be happy to do that for you outside of this meeting and email you directly.
Yeah, fine. It's mainly just to see how useful they've been and if we get any positive results from them.
It's not something that I have to hand, but I certainly, as I say, I can have a look at that for you and email you after the forum.
Yeah, if you would, please, that'd be most useful. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Right, have I got anybody else?
Councillor
Sarah, go on. Somebody did say chair as well.
Desperately trying to help Helen then, but I didn't want to interrupt. It's just really to confirm for Councillor Pan to the position with domestic homicide reviews. Obviously, the domestic homicide reviews responsibility sits very firmly with the districts. myself and Kath pick those up and lead those for the borough, with the chair of the Community Safety Partnership, which is currently Councillor Maxfield. And just really to confirm that we have had a couple of scoping panels this year due to homicides in Newcastle, both of which have been paused, and we've reported back to the Home Office pending police investigations. But just to give you the assurance, Councillor Panther, that we put a general invitation out to all partners that might have had any kind of dealings with the deceased or the perpetrator, and they are invited to contribute to the scoping exercise and then the review that follows thereafter. And we've never had any problems with any of the partners' participation. People do take it really seriously, I'm pleased to say, because it's a really sensitive, difficult topic as well. More than happy to pick up any conversations with you outside of this meeting around the domestic homicide review process and participation. I don't know as well if Kath wants to come in at this point, because the section that was written around other complementary services was highlighted by Kath through some of the dealings and some of the partnerships and some of the relationships that she's got there. So Kath, is there anything else to say over and above Helen's explanation earlier? I was desperately trying to help you, Helen, there, but couldn't get
No
in.
problem.
Apologies.
I was aware that Kath had pulled that together.
Okay. It's something you may not be aware of. We did, when you touched on Carmen Ivana, we did a project with them possibly about 4 years ago, and we'd got some funding and we invited them to Newcastle College, and they did a really good piece of work at the college on violence, which was to raise awareness to students and to the college lecturers. And that was probably June, which was just ahead of the summer holidays, which is a dangerous time for armed violence. So we have used them locally, but I know our local refuge, they will sometimes tap into Carmen Ivana, so they've got the real specialist workers. So that's we do tend to, we can use them for those purposes.
Okay, well, thank you for that. It was just to basically to update her. So my knowledge has gone a bit since the last 20 years since I retired. That was all.
Okay, somebody did.
Yes, Chair, it was me, Bert.
It was you, Bert. Right. I can also see Councillor Gardner with her hand up. So Bert first, and then Councillor Gardner, if you don't mind. Anybody else?
Councillor Kieran would like to speak as well, Chair.
Right. I was going to ask you in any case, Councillor Kieran, because I know it's one of your, well, not one of your, but you usually come in on it. So if I go for Bert, Councillor Gardner, Councillor Kieran. Okay?
Thank you. Just a question, please, as to, we appreciate that there's been an increase in Staffordshire, Newcastle through Stoke-on-Trent. Can anyone tell us whether this increase is in line with what is seen across the rest of the country? We haven't gone off on one all on our own, have we? Is this something that's reflected right across the country? That was all it was.
If I may pick that one up, through the COVID task group, we recognise that certainly through the sort of initial COVID period and the summer period, we seemed, as I'd said, to be questioning the data that we were seeing. Of late, seeing the increases of circa 25%. Initial feedback is that other areas are seeing similar feedback. Certainly in the West Midlands, there has been an increase on par, if not slightly higher than what we're seeing in Staffordshire. So looking at our regional colleagues, we're drawing the conclusion at the moment that we are certainly not out of kilter with anywhere else.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
I have a number of questions, and it might be quicker if maybe Councillor Kieran went first, because he might cover some questions that I will ask, and then I can be shorter.
Oh, in that case, Councillor Kieran.
Thanks, Chair. Well, first of all, thank you to Sarah and Kath, and to Becky and to Helen. Nice to see you again, Helen.
Yes, you too.
Well, first of all, thank you for a very, very comprehensive report, which I think provides a lot of background information and a lot of detail, and it was incredibly useful. I have one really kind of I suppose, pernickety question. It was really useful to see the detail about how collectively Staffordshire is going to respond to the new legislation from the 1st of April around the requirement to provide support within safe environments. But I suppose I'm going to ask that question that has been asked a few times in a number of these debates. Are you collectively convinced? And I suppose I'm opening this up to Matthew as well, I suppose. Are you collectively convinced that you've put enough kind of safeguards and firewalls in place to make sure that when the statutory obligation to provide the domestic abuse services within safe accommodation, when that kicks in on the 1st of April, that there isn't going to be a risk that that's going to kind of suck up time and effort and resource to the detriment of the broader community-based kind of holistic engagement with domestic abuse? I suppose really I'm just looking for some reassurance that there's going to be a balanced approach and it's not going to become imbalanced as a result of that new statutory obligation.
Okay.
Would you like? Sorry, Helen. I was just saying, do you want me to take that one?
Shall I pick it up first of all, and then I'd like to hand over to Becky if I may. So in terms of the statutory obligation, yes, absolutely, it comes into effect from the 1st of April. As you know, the Commission service is led by the Commissioner's Office, and the particular piece of work that you've alluded to, which is absolutely critical, is led by my colleague Becky Murphy in the County Council. Now, the Domestic Abuse Board operates with a number of working groups that sits beneath it, one of which is around safe accommodation. Becky is leading that significant piece of work and reporting directly into the board. So whilst I lead on the Commission service, Becky reporting into the board through her partnership working group that's been established now for a number of months will take the lead. So absolutely there is resource available. Absolutely there is a clear alignment with the domestic abuse strategy, action plan and the Commission service. So Becky, if I can hand over to yourself and perhaps you could outline exactly where we are.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Helen. Yeah, as Helen said, we are utilising the existing partnership governance structures to deliver on the duty, the safe accommodation element of the duty. What the duty actually asks us to do is set up a partnership group to lead on that. We are obviously fortunate in Staffordshire that we've already got the Domestic Abuse Commissioning and Development Board in place. It's been in place for some time. It's now quite well established and has got good representation from a broad range of partners. So actually using that board to deliver on the duty does avoid doing what I think your concern was, Councillor Kieran, that we become too focused on that element at the expense of the other elements. What we're actually planning to do is the needs assessment that is currently being carried out, again, which is a requirement of the duty, is going to be done as a distinct but integral part of the broader needs assessment, which will inform the development of the broader county-wide domestic abuse strategy, and there will be a specific element that focuses on safe accommodation. So as it stands at the moment, we have got one of the subgroups that now reports into the board, as Helen has said, is focusing purely on safe accommodation. We have got an action plan that sits alongside all of the other action plans that the subgroups hold. So it's on a par with, but I wouldn't say it's greater importance than the other thematic groups that report into the board. When I wrote the element of the paper that was focusing on safe accommodation, we hadn't at that stage had our funding allocation confirmed by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. We have had that funding now confirmed for Staffordshire, and it will allow us to maintain the existing services that we have in place that provide support in safe accommodation while we undertake that broader needs assessment to really understand what the demand, what the need and what the current provision is in Staffordshire. So I'm confident the fact that we're building it into current partnership arrangements will mean that it is on a par with and has all of those synergies recognised with the broader work. You can't really separate out victims and families who live in safe accommodation from those that live in the community, and what we really need to do is make sure all of them have an equitable service. I don't know if there are any further questions, if that did answer your question, Councillor Kieran.
No, that's great. that was incredibly helpful. That's really kind of that's given me a clear sense that it is being factored in. I was slightly worried that whenever you have a situation where there are statutory obligations on one side and then kind of the things that we ideally want to do, that they tend to lose out as things are squeezed. But no, I mean, I think that governance structure that you outlined there, both Helen and Becky, it makes sense, and it's really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Gardner. Sorry, Councillor Kieran. Have you finished with your questions?
Yes, I have, Chair. Thank you.
Right. So, Councillor Gardner, and then I've noticed Councillor Moffat. I keep getting calling you Muffy.
Councillor Moffat has.
That's it. Yeah. Right, Councillor Gardner.
Okay. First off, can I just say thank you to everything that you've been doing. I should imagine that you've had a very, very difficult 12 months throughout this, and I just really want that to be acknowledged. So when I ask these questions, it's because I want to understand and dig through, not necessarily to have a go at you. So please forgive me if it feels like that. I just need to understand things. I am a data scientist by trade, so I need data sometimes. I have noted that in section 4.1.1 that the data is over a 24-month period, which is a little bit frustrating because it doesn't allow us to do that comparison of 2019 and 2020 and the effects of COVID. So I wonder if you've been able to disaggregate that data. But with that in mind, I note that there is a gap of about 284 referrals for adult cases and 31 for CYP cases, from referrals to actual those offering support. And I'm quite interested in what's happened to those people, those few hundred people who have been bad enough to gain a referral but not to actually have gained that support. So that is one question. A second point, and again it's a thank you actually, that I have noted the increase in funding of this service, and that is extremely welcome in very difficult times, and I think it's quite a significant increase in funding, so that thank you for that. I note that Newcastle under Lyme is the third highest recorded domestic violence incidents in the area, behind Stoke North and Stoke South. So I'm just wondering if we are seeing a proportion of the funding to reflect that increase. So that's another question, keeping this really brief. A slight point to say that there's a couple of sections which I feel weren't very detailed. There weren't actual data. So the COVID section 4.1.7 was quite difficult to understand, but you've explained that earlier on, so thank you. You had weird data, so I get that one, but I just would address that one. I have a couple of points. Consent to contact, I didn't see mentioned, and apologies if it is mentioned and I've not spotted it. Is an issue that I have. I appreciate the difficulties with contacting people who haven't given us consent to contact. I'd like to know what your policy is on that and how you deal with that issue, particularly in these very difficult times with lockdowns. So that's my third point. And then my final really nice thing is at 7.3, still a commitment to for White Ribbon accreditation. I'm there with you. I will work really hard on it and support you possibly in 2022. So that's my three questions really: consent to contacts, the difference in referrals, and whether we're getting a proportion of the funding.
Okay, if I take those one by one, and apologies if I just come back to you just asking for a little bit of clarity, just trying to remember all of those points as we go through. So in terms of the statistics that were provided within the report, at the time we were writing the report, we had not done our final quarter's performance management with the Commission service. So I was only able to give the statistics up until the 30th of September. Obviously, coming to the meeting today, we'd had that meeting with the service provider. So I'd got the final quarter statistics. I don't have them broken down year by year. But what I did do was to break them down quarter by quarter for the last 12 months for you. But happily, if you want them broken down year by year, I can let you have those after the meeting without a problem at all.
No, a quarter by quarter for the 2 years, and then you can actually see the trends is even better, actually. So yes,
well, I've got quarter by quarter for the last 12 months for you.
Yeah.
So for the period October to December 20, there were 189 referrals. The inquiries and referrals July to September 2020 were 150. From April to June 2020 were 121, and from January to March there were 122. So over the period of 12 months, what you've seen is just over a 50% increase in demand in terms of referrals and inquiries to the service.
And how is that translated to actual support given? So that was my concern with the gap between referrals and support. So what is the reason for that gap?
In terms of people that will be referred on, and those inquiries and referrals, I'm sure you will appreciate, could be a victim making an inquiry or a family member making an inquiry on behalf of the victim, all the way through to somebody being referred by social care or the police to the service. So it's a whole scale or a whole spectrum of inquiries and referrals. And indeed, some particular individuals may choose not to engage after hearing perhaps about the support services that are available, or inquiring about child contact support, advice and guidance over legal or financial support, may choose not to engage in a particular programme. So it really is down to the individuals as to whether they choose to engage or not. Clearly, those that go through the higher risk MARAT cases will be part and parcel of statutory referrals, but obviously we are dependent upon the victim wanting to engage and wanting to participate in programmes and take the support that's made available to them. So that's picking up the statistics, those that don't take support. I think the following point was around proportion of funding for Newcastle particularly. The funding that is provided by the Commissioner's Office is made available for services that span Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent. The funding that's made available by the County Council supports the county area, and that by Stoke-on-Trent for the city area. So the services are available, as I say, as a baseline across the piece. So what we don't do is proportion out the funding for particular geographies, because that would prove so challenging for the service provider to be able to accommodate. So that funding is, as I say, a baseline service funding pot that operates across the whole of the area. The next point, and I think the final point that was made, was with regard to consent, consent to contact. Now, obviously, with a victim, clearly what we say to particularly the police is that what we want you to do is to make a victim aware that they will be referred on to a service. If they've been made aware, then clearly their details will be shared with a domestic abuse provider, so that provider can make contact and make an offer of support. So that's the policy. It's around somebody being made aware that there is an offer of support that will be made to them.
Okay, so that's thank you for that. So you do allow contact without consent, because my memory was that wasn't a policy that you allowed prior. So that is.
No, it's about being made aware that the service is available and will contact them.
Okay, just one very quick follow-on question to that. And again, it's within the COVID situation, and also about care of the staff as well in this question.
Yes.
Trying to reach out when you're in lockdown, even in normal times, when you are living with a domestic abuser, it's really difficult to reach out, and even trying to check a website or make a phone call from home is really, really hard. So we can imagine in lockdown. So I think there's been I think there's a report saying that the data that we have, that there is an increase, is probably still an underrepresentation of the data. how have you managed to maintain face-to-face support? You said in the report that it's online support. You can understand that. Are you offering any direct face-to-face in-person support and managing to meet people away from their homes now that they're sort of allowed to go out for exercise for that 1 hour a day? You could manage to meet up with people if need be. Are you doing that? And in which case, I presume your staff have got the PPE that they need or are doing the social distancing and support for that. So just a question about face-to-face support.
Yeah, absolutely, and really, really valid question. The New Era service has operated throughout the pandemic from their 2 office spaces, one in Stafford and one in Hanley in Stoke-on-Trent. The premises have been COVID secure, checked and tested. And where there is a necessity for the victim to meet a support worker in a safe environment, those offices are available to use. Their staff have appropriate training, they have PPE, and indeed we're just exploring at the moment the opportunity to secure lateral flow tests for the New Era staff. In terms of CYP, we have arrangements through the county and city to allow New Era staff access to children and young people within a school environment where it's safe to do so. So again, if there is face-to-face engagement with the young people that need that support. The other just interesting point to make as well, and you may have picked up from the media a little bit about the Ask Annie campaign, which is the initiative which allows victims who are really struggling to reach out for support to go into their local pharmacy and ask for immediate support by using the phrase Ask Annie. And that particular initiative was led by myself and police colleagues in Staffordshire, and we developed the initiative and that was taken up by the Home Office and has actually been launched nationally. So I think we were at the forefront of leading that piece of work with the victims at the forefront of our minds throughout the pandemic.
That is just fantastic news, and thank you for that. As I said, trying to get out from under the person's view,
absolutely,
to be able to make contact is so important. That's the classic way. Once again, I have no more questions. I just want to thank you all, and I'm delighted to hear the news about Glow, because I also know that they've done some amazing work. And again, I've got to thank you all so much for everything that you've done and are trying to do going forward.
Thanks, Councillor.
Councillor Garden, if I just to kind of cover the Glow bit, we've been very fortunate since last March actually that Glow put in risk assessments. They were able to get hold of PPA and continue whether that's been in a garden or at a doorstep. It's then gone on to seeing children in school. But we've been very fortunate that they've wanted to have eyes on the children, the most vulnerable children, young people. So it wasn't something we asked them to do. They did go above and beyond in this situation, and they continue to see those children, young people, and offer them reassurance packs and things that could help them in the lockdown situation whilst they were experiencing either their own abusive relationships or living with it with parents. So that's been something that we've been extremely fortunate for in Newcastle.
Yes, and thank you for that. And would you pass on my thanks to them as well, Sarah? I was due to go visit, and then of course COVID and things happened. But I did read that section of the report, and I did note it. So again, it's great news that we can continue that contract.
Councillor Moffat, did you want to have a say?
It was only just a really quick point for Councillor Pantin about Carmen Ivana. Just to say that there is actually a really powerful and productive relationship with them that kind of goes back. I know that that was just mentioned, but also in 2019, in September, the New Vic hosted Carmen Ivana's roadshow, again, raising awareness about so-called honour-based violence, and the documentary drama All Our Daughters was performed at Newcastle College actually, and they hosted that piece for 2 days, so huge numbers of students were able to benefit and be signposts. So It's great to know that those national relationships are strong and they have their impact locally as well. That's all I wanted to add. And just to say thank you to the team, absolutely brilliant work going on.
Right, Councillor Gardner, I've got a hand up in your screen. Does that mean you've got something else to say?
No, that's a legacy hand. Apologies. Hang on. I don't know how to put it.
Don't worry, I'll ignore
down.
it. Don't worry, I'll ignore it. If you wave at me frantically, that's better.
Yeah, it's because somebody tell me how to put my hand down. Oh, I found it. Yeah, I found it there. I'm there. You go. Oh my lord! I teach in the computer school of computing at Keele.
I'm a caveman. I just hit it with an hammer and it works. Right. Anybody else got any more questions before we move on? I'm going through the screens. That's you four. That's you four. Nobody's got an hand up yet. Bert, I don't know about you because I can't see a picture of you.
No, thanks.
No. And Councillor Maxfield, I haven't got a picture of you either. So
I am here, Chair. It's just low internet. That's all.
Right. You haven't got any questions or anything you want to say?
No. I did have some questions, but they've been answered, so that's fine.
Right. Okay then. Right. So we'll move on. Councillor Murphy, hold on. Let's get you. There we go. It's over to you for your tackling race hate project. Have we got another title for you this time, though?
Oh, I'm presenting in the capacity of Director of New Vic Borderlines. So not as a councillor who's part of the scrutiny committee, but to the scrutiny committee. If that's okay.
That's okay. Take it away.
Right, thank you. I'm going to attempt to share the screen so that I can just use a PowerPoint which has got information for people. I did forward it to Denise, and I'm sure that she'll forward it on to the committee. Thank you.
Chairman, can I just check that you're okay for the Commissioner's office people to go?
Yes, I don't think there's anything else on the agenda that well, you tell me, is there anything on the agenda that you'd like to come in on?
I think it's the domestic abuse stuff that we were here for. Can I just say thank you very much for the depth of questions that you provided to the professionals online, and I have to say that in Staffordshire, across most agencies, all agencies actually, but particularly the relationship with Newcastle and the Commissioner's office, I think we're blessed with some really enthusiastic and capable people. And whilst this is a huge issue across the country, and it's a difficult issue in Staffordshire, I would like to pay tribute to everybody locally and county-wide who are part of this agenda, because there is real passion behind it, real passion behind it, and all I do is provide the money where I possibly can. So thanks very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you for coming and your team.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
What they've done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Matthew.
Bye.
Right, Sue, back to you.
Can everybody see this screen?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'm talking about this as the Director of New Vic Borderlines, and just for people who may not know, obviously the New Vic is an amazing producing theatre that is a huge part of the culture of Newcastle under Lyme, and award-winning in very many ways for the fabulous work it does on stage. The work that New Vic Borderlines does is our outward-facing work, which is also award-winning and nationally acclaimed. And so thank you for the opportunity to talk about the Faith and Race Hate project. So last year, the government announced funding to tackle faith and race hate across the UK. And the funding was significant, as you can see from the slide, 1.8 million for project support. The bid opened in 2019 and the deadline was in March 2020, extended to, I think, just the beginning of May. The new vicars always look to be very brave in working around issues which affect communities. You just heard me mention about the work we did around honour-based violence, which was launched nationally from Westminster. So it's great to know that a small theatre in Newcastle Borough has such an impact, not only locally, but also nationally. So again, being brave, we all know that race and faith hate is something which is a very, very difficult topic, but we also know that we share an ambition to play a part in creating a Britain that really holds British values, not just on paper, but in the way that our communities act in its day-to-day. So I put a bid in for the Faith and Race Hate Grant to look at how we could work in partnership across Staffordshire, Newcastle and Stoke-on-Trent. I invited Port Vale Football Club and Sporting Communities to be part of this project, bringing together the idea of creativity, football and sport to have a positive impact. I'm really proud of the fact that over 120 applications from across the UK were made to this fund, and only 9 projects were funded. So again, I think that is fantastic for us in Newcastle to be amongst such high-hitting national partners. I'd really like to make clear that this is an opportunity. The reason why this grant is important for us is that it's an opportunity for us locally to have an impact on national policy. So the Ministry of Communities, Housing and Local Government are really keen to look at how these 9 projects might help shape future government policy around tackling faith and race hate. So it's a really important opportunity for us to showcase the work that we do locally and look at how that work can be taken up in different parts of the country. So I think this is something that Newcastle can be really proud of. And this isn't necessarily because we have a particular race or faith hate issue in Staffordshire or Stoke-on-Trent, but actually that our project is innovative and it's exciting, and it shows a way in which communities and partners can work together to make a difference. Our project is called It's Not as Simple as Black and White, which of course when dealing with faith and race hate, it really isn't. So as I said just a moment ago, I saw the opportunity here to really look at what British values mean, and not just have them as words on pieces of paper, but how we make those values stand up and walk around. And of course, working in theatre, that's exactly what we do. We take the words from the page, whether it's the word written by somebody like Shakespeare or with our documentary testimonies, and also our ambitions, like with the British values. We want to see those values taken up by ordinary people and acted out in our day-to-day activities, and the way that we show what we stand for as a society. And I think the Faith Minister, Lord Greenhouse, made some really important points. And although it might not always be true, but I think, you know, the idea that we believe in the freedom within the rule of law, that we're all free to love and not to hate, and that the government will not tolerate hate towards anybody because who they are. These are all things that, of course, we as a theatre, but also we as communities want to embrace. And I particularly love the optimism of the idea of faith communities instinctively loving their neighbours. So although this project is dealing with a very, very difficult and actually a horrible issue, there is also optimism and opportunity for celebration here as well. I'm sorry this slide is a bit stretched and small, but I thought, again, in terms of how much funding the new Vic attracted and the fact that that funding then is going to be able to be used locally, I think it's really important. So we're, out of the 9 projects, we're the 4th highest funded project out of them all. And again, just for you to see that this list of partners are really kind of big, important national organisations like the English Football League. The Anthony Walker Foundation was brought about following the murder of Anthony Walker in Liverpool, and they've done some amazing work at building relationships in communities. The Youth Sport Trust were up there along with the Anne Frank Trust. I'm sure everybody knows about the really important national and international work that the Anne Frank Trust does. Obviously, we have the Faith and Belief Forum, the Manningham Housing Association, Newcastle United Foundation, which, like Port Vale Football Club, play in black and white. They're really excited about our project because we're using football, and Solutions, Not Sides. So our It's Not as Simple as Black and White project really uses the idea of football as a way of tackling faith and race hate, with the idea really that hate is race hate is like a team of hate, and we need to look at our tactics in terms of gathering a team who can stand up against that hate and also win against it. So Port Vale have been absolutely brilliant, and as have supported communities in very, very difficult circumstances. Already since November last year, we've worked with over 2,000 people locally, including young people, running workshops where community members and young people can understand where does race and faith hate come from, and what can we do as decent members of society to actually tackle that. I'm just going to lower this screen for a moment. So we've already been working for a number of months. The project was supposed to finish at the end of March, but we've won an extension from the Ministry of May in the hope that we would be able to actually take some of this work directly into schools and also host events at the New Vic and also at Port Vale Football Club. So what this extension has allowed us to do is to kickstart our kind of public facing element of the project on the International Day for Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which is a United Nations event. And what we'd also like to do is invite representatives of the borough to be part of the launch, and also to make people aware of the poster banner competition, which will be launched on March the 20th as well. So what we're looking at there is using the idea of football banners, which you often see in stadia. So getting community members, so there will be an adult competition then a 16 to 18, a 12 to 15, and an 11s and under competition, to create really powerful and colourful posters, which would then be turned into banners that would be displayed at Port Vale and at the New Vic. And also we would have an online exhibition of those pieces of artwork as well. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen now so that I can see everybody again, and just ask if there's any questions that people would like me to answer about the project before I finish. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, right. Let's screen one up. I'm looking for hands up. I can't see any hands up. Aha, Councillor Gardner, thank you.
It's not a question, it's just to commend all the work that's being done. It's incredibly valuable, and it's and I know that this is just one example of many where New Vic and New Vic borderlines really represent Newcastle and the local thing on the national stage at quite the highest levels, and they're great ambassadors for the area, and they do fantastic work, and I know a lot more of the work that they do via various contacts, and a very valuable part of our community and what we provide here locally. So thank you, Sue, for that. It was fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner.
Chair.
Yeah, Bert, go on.
Yes, really to echo what Councillor Gardner said, and to congratulate the team and Sue indeed as well for what is undoubtedly an incredible venture, and so vital that it's taken out there to the schools. And I think that what's being proposed now, Sue, is absolutely wonderful. But I think it's also perhaps a little sad that more knowledge of what's being done by the New Vic borderlines and the achievements haven't been made perhaps more publicly. People haven't been made aware as much as they perhaps should have been, or perhaps it's me that I've missed it. But I would just like to congratulate you all for an absolutely incredible job.
Thank you, Councillor Proctor. I'll pass that on to my colleagues.
Anybody else? Councillor Patton and Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd just like to reiterate Councillor Proctor's thanks to the group for a very, very informative report. You mentioned about people at Port Vale and Newcastle United. Is there any way you can use your influence to try and arrange another match like the legendary Cyril Regis organised between a team of white players and a team of black players, where the white players were on a black strip, the black players were on a white strip. Nobody gave the hoot of what the final score was, and there was no racism there at all.
Councillor Panton, that's a brilliant idea. Anything that where we get to go and see well-played football matches, music to my kind of ears. I think it's great as well because, of course, the only colours that matter in the game of football is the colour that you're wearing on your kind of football top. And one of the beautiful things we see in the beautiful game is at the end of a game is the swapping of those shirts and the real sense of camaraderie, and and also the fact that you need a team, you need the opposite team to play against. And I mean, I didn't know about that. I will do some research into that match. Thank you, Councillor Panton, because I think it's a really powerful idea, isn't it, that when we're watching the game, actually the colour of anybody's skin simply shouldn't matter. It's what they do with the ball that matters. And I do think, I mean, one of the reasons I think this project captured the imaginations of the ministry was because of bringing creativity and football together. We've seen an awful rise of things that we thought had been consigned to a sad history of racism on football terraces. And I think, you know, we've got the European Cup, which will start in June. So this project will finish just as the Cup begins. So we hope to tie in with that. And we really hope that some of the awful behaviours we have seen on those terraces will not raise its ugly head again. But that's a great idea. Thank you for bringing it to me, and I will certainly do some research.
There's an interesting footnote to something like that. England played Montenegro away, I think last year, thrashed them something like 6-0. And there's a lot of racism coming from the Montenegro crowd towards the English players who were black. And they promptly responded by the black players scoring 4 of the 6 goals. Enough said, I think, there.
Yeah, it's a good answer, isn't it? It's a good response.
The only one.
Thank you.
Sue,
Well
you
done,
wanted
Sue.
to...
I think Sarah wants to say
Sue,
something.
did you want to have a say?
Do you mean
So,
Sarah?
sorry, Sarah, not Sue. Sorry, I told you I'm getting after having my glasses changed, and I've only just had them done.
I'll forgive you, I promise. Only to say, Councillor Moffat, I've stayed on specifically just to look at your presentation because I wanted to find out a little bit more because I'm nosy like that. But I think this ties in really nicely as well to another couple of emerging themes that I think are coming through. And I don't know if you're linked up with them, but I think it'd be good to get you guys at the New Vic linked up if you're not already. There's been some work that has been led by Keele University, a lady called Faye Harris from their Students' Union, around hate crime, which I think could link in really nicely to this. And there's also some work that's been led by the County Council in partnership, again, it's a shame Helen and Matthew aren't still on, in partnership with the County, the Commissioner's Office and the City Council around hate crime and community cohesion. They're wanting to push it forward as a priority. When you look at our strategic assessment for community safety, community cohesion doesn't sit on there as one of the 5 priorities, and it's generally because we've got more incidents of other stuff happening, so it pushes them up the food chain. That said, this is still something that we know we need to do more on. Capacity is always going to be an issue, but I can't use that as an excuse. It's certainly an area of interest that we need to look at. So yeah, I think there's some interesting links and there's some interesting work that's starting to evolve as well. So I think we need to just perhaps join that up if we get the opportunity to do so. But I'd certainly be interested from Newcastle's perspective. So if there's anything you need from me, it might be that we have to sort of share it out within the team, but we'll get as involved as we can. So, yeah,
Thank you, Sarah. And I think I did mention it to Natalie Noon, but it may well have been before we got the funding agreed, because, you know, until it happens, it's not happening, is it? So I'll be happy for any of that. Any contacts you can send me with Keele. We have got a steering group, so if somebody from your group would like to sit on it, that would be useful. Iftikhar Ahmed from the City Council, who's part of Shazad's team, and the Prevent Officer are part of the steering group as well. So what we're hoping is that this is a very short project, but we have a little bit of time to lay some foundations and perhaps create a network which will last beyond the life of the project, really. So any way of connecting would be brilliant. So thank you for that.
There'll be other opportunities as well with the funding, won't there, once we've dipped our toe in the water a little bit. But Trevor in my team kind of tends to lead on anything community cohesion-y, prevent-y. So if that's okay, we'll nominate Trevor Smith, who reports through to Natalie. I think you're right. You did have a conversation with Natalie about it because I seem to remember, but it was before you got the funding. I think we were just talking about initial ideas at the time, but I think Trevor would be a good one because he's already tapped into the county group, the hate crime group there. We've put him forward as a nominee to represent the district as well. But I'm sure Faye would be interested to talk to you. She did send me quite a lot of information as well. So I'll have a chat with her about joining the dots up. But I think Councillor Kieran wanted to come in as well, and I'm not sure if perhaps that's with his Keel hat on.
I've seen him. He's got his little yellow hand up, so I can. Councillor Kieran.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Sarah. I was just going to say, you reminded me there that the work that Faye Faye Harris did with the student union at Keele. It's really, really good stuff. I mean, I suppose I have to declare an interest. I was the advisor on that that programme, and they have developed some really good resources around hate crime and young people, and kind of focused on kind of engaging young people, making them aware, both as perpetrators, sometimes unwitting perpetrators, but also as victims. So yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy. Sue Moffat, not Sue Moore, obviously. I'm quite happy, Sue, to put you in touch with Faye.
That's brilliant.
A really good conversation to be had there.
Yeah. Thank you. That's brilliant, and it'd be great just to build on that work, because of course the report goes to the ministry, and it is brilliant for us as a borough to be having an impact in that way. I mean, it was great, Sarah, to hear from sorry, I've forgotten what her name is, from the county, who said, the domestic violence initiative that was taken up by the Home Office. I mean, it just shows what talent and what an impressive borough and county we are, really. And I know that the New Vic is really proud to be a part of it. The creative county, and also just an amazing borough. So thank you for the opportunity to present this project. And if anybody wants any more information or anything, please just send us an email through. And also thank you for your comments, everybody.
Right. Well, I've got to admit, I've seen quite a few at the Vic, and I'm missing seeing them. There's been some really heartfelt and make you think plays and stuff that they put on. So yes, give our thanks from the committee and everybody else, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
And but by the way, Sarah, the reason you keep becoming Sue Moore, my sister's name Sue Moore. It rolls off the tongue a lot easier, especially seeing if she's my older sister. Right. Parks and open spaces, and this time it is Councillor Sue Moffat.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just worried about my name now. I thought it was quite an ordinary name. But you do seem to be struggling with it a little bit tonight.
I'm struggling with the blinking computers, tell you. Go on, I'm sorry, I interrupted you and I shouldn't have done.
Yeah. This is the Parks and Open Spaces Scrutiny. First of all, can I just say what an amazing working group it is, and thank you so much to Councillor Cooper for wanting to put this group together. The officers have been great, and we did get given a kind of an interim report to the group, but we are going to go into more detail before we present back to the Scrutiny Committee, having looked at some themes that have arisen. Councillor Cooper, did you just put your hand up, Councillor? I don't know whether you did.
I did, yes. As we swapped chairs halfway through the meeting, as you lost contact, at the end, we found out that I can't remember his name now. Roger Tate had taken a lot of points down for us. So Andrew has very kindly has said that he will give us the points that we came up with, as I didn't write them down at the time, and you missed half of it. So over to Andrew.
Well, that's really thankful, Councillor Cooper. I have found my scribbled notes at the side here, but I'd much rather Andrew presented his well thought out one. So thank you for saving me from that. I mean, I was worried that I was going to have to present a report on domestic violence earlier. So, I'm still just getting over that. So thank you, Councillor Cooper and Andrew.
Not a problem. Okay, thank you, Chair. and again, thanks for the input the other day. I think it was a really useful and healthy discussion that we had. So effectively, Roger Tate and his colleagues had prepared a report for the group, which we went through, which discussed a number of issues around how parks and open spaces are managed within the borough. And also Councillor Cooper quite rightly touched on the open space strategy. So at the end, effectively, what we've decided to do is that the group will meet again sometime in middle of April. I think it's the 15th we've agreed, with a view then to looking at some other issues, which I'll highlight in a minute, and then bringing a final report back to you as the committee at your June meeting. So, and effectively, the working group at the moment is recommending that the importance, obviously, of open space for physical and mental health and well-being, and I think that's particularly poignant at the moment, is emphasised, and that we give appropriate priority in the council's annual budget for setting a programme, and also that we make use of the One Council programme in relation to digital promotion and for the service of the customer engagement that goes with that. So it's very much topic of the day. That we look, initial pilot work is then undertaken to improve information on open spaces. We had quite a good debate about this, both on the website, which includes a register of strategic open spaces with location maps, the option for using QR codes at 2 sites, and we're suggesting Lyme Valley and Bathpool Park for those. And again, those enable users to upload feedback, and then to look at the resources that we need to be made available to implement this work. And again, in terms of the existing website, the report it functions are reviewed, because I think there was some debate about how people can easily report issues. So we need to review those. And again, that will form part of the One Council programme where necessary. The third one is that the existing tree planting project in the environmental sustainability strategy is reviewed and to incorporate, the potential community sponsor a tree. So we had some debate and useful contributions about how that could work. So as an idea, for instance, to get 850 trees to celebrate the borough's 850th anniversary in 2023, and we can link that in with the Britain in Bloom community projects. And then effectively also we look at external funding, and the partnership activity is reviewed and capacity issues highlighted. So at the moment we have a sort of excellent external funding partnership with sponsors that help us with the Britain in Bloom programme, and it's to look at whether we can further utilise that in terms of helping our parks and open spaces. I think that's everything I got noted down anyway, Chair, so hopefully that's covered it. But it's I think we've got off to a good start. Thank you.
Excellent. By the way, if you need any trees, I've got loads growing in the bedroom, believe it or not. Right, any questions? I'm going from screen 1, so raise your hand. Or Councillor Garnett, you're the first one.
Yes, it's just a quick one, and I just have to, before I say it, I was glad to hear that this group's working so well. I know I was down originally to be on it, but it clashed with, unfortunately, an illness, and it was just a bit too much for me. So thank you, and Sue particularly, who got thrown in the deep end by me and my inability to carry on. So thank you for that. Just to know, with regards to trees, I do not know if this is still available or on offer, but I was speaking to Paul Farrelly, who has links with Japan, who were planning on donating quite a large number of cherry trees, and he was trying to find a home for them. But this was before the pandemic started, so I don't know what's happened with those. I haven't discussed them with them since the pandemic, because we were talking about putting them in crackly playing fields and whether they'd be good there. So there's some cherry trees available potentially, if you are planning on that, which would be beautiful come springtime. But again, I'm not promising, and I'd have to contact them, see if they're still available.
Just to come back on that, Chair, we have actually had some cherry trees donated, so that piece of work is ongoing.
So I lost out for crackly then. Oh damn.
Well, as I say, you know, part of the look again is you know, around, I think we spoke quite that we've got this 850th anniversary coming up, and I think, you know, there's a real opportunity there again. So you know, if you like, we can make sure we sort of feed that in.
Any more questions?
Just a little matter of point, and as I said at the open space meeting, that originally the cherry stock in Japan was dying out. So we sent, an Englishman sent over a cherry tree from England, and that is where the Japanese stock now takes off from. It's one of ours. So basically it's gone full circle. They've now given us a gift of cherry trees, which were originated in England. So they're coming back home. That's nice to know.
So just to butt in again, it's just you say Councillor Holland has just posted a link onto the on the chat about the gift of the cherry trees. Thank you for that.
We don't want any more in Bignell End though, because we've got enough of it blowing around all spring.
Well, but I've got 25 oak trees I've got to find a home for shortly.
Oh, we'll have the oak trees. We don't want any more cherry blossom though.
And silver birch, and some Scotch pine. Oh, yeah. Plenty of coming up. Any more questions? I'll go through the screens again. I can't see you, Bert. So if you want to say anything.
No, I'm fine.
You're fine. Okay. Who else can't I see? Councillor Cooper, Councillor John Cooper. Do you want to say anything? I haven't seen you. I can't see you either.
No, I've got nothing to say. Thank you.
Okay, mate. Right. Well, a good start in any case, Sue. So well done to your committee, and look forward to hearing more and seeing more, especially with what you're planning. And like I say, we've got the anniversary, so there's something to get your teeth into.
It's a great group, and like I say, thank you to Councillor Cooper for the original idea to create this little group. It's something that I really look forward to.
Good. Right. Look, where are we? Parks. Minutes of the health and minutes of Staffordshire Select Committee, Health and Select Committee. Unfortunately, I couldn't go. No, we can't go, can we? I couldn't do the Skype meeting. I was working, and Gillian was stuck because she didn't get the invite and everything else in time. So, has anybody got anything to say on it, or can we just accept it?
Accept.
Yeah, I've got one accept.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. That'll do me. Right. Meeting with the Clinical Commission Group. Right. I am going to hand over now to Andrew, who's going to give us the rundown.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this is the second meeting that we've had with, obviously, with yourself, Councillor Wilkes, and Vice Chair Councillor Cooper, with Tracy Sherwin, who's the Director of Communications at the CCGS. Really positive meeting, actually. So just really to update you on the sort of highlights of what we discussed. Obviously focused around COVID as the main issue of affecting all of our lives. But some good news really in terms of certainly the two hospitals. So bed numbers, effectively, we've seen a big reduction, and it's now below the peak as it was. So at the moment we've got, well, as of Friday, there was 140 patients in the Royal Stoke and 10 in the county hospital in Stafford. The numbers are down in critical care, so now down to 38. So that's a big improvement. We asked about the age grouping of patients this time as against the first wave, and Tracy confirmed that this time we have seen a lot more people, a lot more young people, a lot more of a sort of wide age group rather than it necessarily being older people. So that in itself actually is quite worrying and something that we should really bear in mind. The youngest person we've got at the moment is only 18 that's in hospital. So you know, that I think is quite a stark reality. But as I say, numbers are coming down, so it's definitely going in the right direction. We're seeing obviously a slower reduction in rates of people catching COVID, and you know, North Staffordshire actually is doing really well. Numbers are coming down nicely, and we're close to certainly in Newcastle, close to the 100 in 100,000 people. So that's going in the right direction. However, elsewhere in Staffordshire, it's not so good. So particularly Tamworth and East Staffs, numbers are still climbing. So there is worry in pockets of the county, and it's something that we should need to keep our eye on. In terms of vaccinations, again, really positive news there. Numbers effectively are in terms of the over 80s, 98% of those people in that age group have now been vaccinated with their first vaccination, and 100% of the people between 70 and 79, which is fantastic. Care homes have all been, people in care homes within the borough have all been vaccinated as well. So again, you know, that's helped, and indeed numbers of people affected with COVID in care homes has been dramatically down. It's been mainly obviously staff rather than necessarily residents. The largest cohort in the borough is the 60 to 65 year olds, and obviously they're working their way through that age group at the moment. That's the biggest that we've got in the borough, and again, you know, from all intents and purposes, the vaccination programme is going really well. They have now obviously started in certain areas at the next cohort. I think Denise earlier sent round figures effectively by ward, so you can see there that effectively how many people have been vaccinated by each of the ward in within Newcastle Borough. What it doesn't tell us, unfortunately, is the percentage. It's just core numbers, so we don't really know is that 10% of the population, 20 or whatever. I guess that might be something useful to ask for next time. There has been an increase actually this time, interestingly, in terms of testing as well. We've seen an increase in people actually coming forward with symptoms and of non-COVID. So people with colds and other things are coming forward, whereas they weren't actually in the first wave. So, you know, they're actually taking that as a positive as well. And also, obviously, you know, the wealth of volunteers, and I know, Chair, you've volunteered yourself, haven't you, at a vaccination centre, and I think we had some discussion about, you know, how well that was going, and really credit to all the volunteers that we've managed to get, not just in Newcastle, but indeed across the county. It's really good news. And I think for me, one of the questions, obviously, you know, that we posed back to Tracy was what can we as a borough council do to help to support the NHS and Public Health England in terms of you know, beating this pandemic. And it very much is still around you know, the sort of communications around good hygiene, social distancing, all of those things. And I think it was summed up by a very good statement that Tracy made, and it's this: that this virus doesn't move. You know, it's got no way of moving. It's people that move it, and therefore people moving it is the issue, and that's where we have to take care and do all we can to protect, you know, others within our community. That's a quick run through. I don't know, Chair or Vice Chair, whether you've got any more that you wish to add, and happy to obviously take any questions.
No, I think you've got it all down. Julie, have you got anything?
Right, it was just the fact that to add to this COVID, I also mentioned it at a health meeting with CCG, that it was Stoke the other day that took out, went out to around the shopping supermarkets, as there's a lot of families going out shopping now, instead of going out in ones like they've been told to do. Just go out on your own, leave the family at home. No, they're taking the entire family, so people are looking at the shops, seeing how crowded they are, and walking away. So this is Stoke went round and did a mystery shop, and that was the council leader. And then somebody else went round and they came back and said, yes, it was the people that were going out in families, which was making everybody feel so insecure. So I asked, you know, if there's anything we could do about that, because it's like, you know, you're going out on your own, you're abiding by everything, you're doing your space, your mask and everything, and then you get bombarded by a family when you get in the shop. So it's like not keeping the social distance. Thank you.
Chair.
Councillor Gordon. Oh, Gordon, I can hear Bert somewhere in the background there.
Yeah, Chair, can I just say that there have been some absolutely amazing performances all around this borough over these last few months in delivering these vaccinations, and those hundreds of volunteers who, in really inclement weather with the snow and all kinds of things going on those car parks, directing people and assisting people. The performance has been absolutely outstanding. And I couldn't believe the efficiency when my wife and I went for our vaccinations along at Kidsgrove there. And I'm sure everyone has someone in mind who have set a wonderful example throughout this. But I want just to mention, even before this committee, an absolutely outstanding GP in Audley who works in the group that covers Audley, Kidsgrove, Chesterton, and quite simply, I cannot speak highly enough of the performance that has been there 7 days a week. And this lady has communicated with the public in a way that is absolutely remarkable. So I just want to make special mention of the doctor at Audley who has coordinated this. And quite frankly, I can't think of anyone who has gone the extra mile more so than this lady. So I just want, Ian, you know who she is.
Oh, yeah.
And quite frankly, Dr. Turner has been absolutely incredible. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner. Yeah. Yeah.
Mute. I'll
You're
unmute.
mute.
I'm unmuted. I'm unmuted. I'm completely endorse what's been said. I think the response has been amazing, both through support during COVID. You know, people doing the test and tracing on. I've been into the Bet365 car park. It's very surreal, but they're incredibly well trained. And I haven't been for my vaccination yet, Councillor Proctor, but I hope.
Very naughty.
Well, I haven't been asked, so I mean, yeah, I'm not there
yet. You're too
yet.
young.
I know I look drawn. I know I look old enough. No, I'm not yet. Just to be, I noticed the email that we had about the statistics for the vaccinations broken down by local MSOA name. And I was slightly concerned at the very low figures for Chesterton and Nutton. There's similar low figures for Kidsgrove Central and also for Madeley and Betley. Now, I can't pick the population numbers up there to see whether it's proportionally it's the same or whether these are actually lower figures, but I wouldn't mind that being looked into to see if there is a point of concern there that certain areas, particularly Chesterton and Nutton, are not attending or not getting the information about vaccination as much. It might be that there's not a problem, but I think that could be worth looking into.
Just to come back, try and answer that, Councillor Gardner. Certainly, there was nothing raised as any particular issues in any areas. I think, you know, the overall rate was very positive. I say, unfortunately, the data that we've got doesn't give us the percentages and the population, as you say. So the indication in the conversation was certainly that everything was okay. But I agree. I think it would be useful to have a little bit more analytical data in future. So certainly when we meet with Tracy next time or in advance of that, we'll try and get that clarified a little bit more, because I think you're absolutely right. It really would be useful to know whether we've got any particular pockets. As I say, unless I missed something, Councillor Wilkes and Cooper, I didn't get that impression, to be fair. That she was very positive about Newcastle Borough as a whole.
But when you disaggregate the data, that might throw up. And of course, we know those two areas have some social deprivation indicators.
We'll go back and see if we can clarify that or get some more sort of in-depth data.
Much appreciated.
Councillor Cooper, are you
right?
Hand up.
Yeah, the reason everything is going lovely, and I'm very pleased with the way the vaccination's going out and all the hard work and everything else that's going on. It's just a shame that the thing I said earlier, my little point, is spoiling it for a lot of people, because we're doing all this hard work and a lot of people are staying and doing what they should be doing, and then you get this minority that go out and spoil it for the rest. So it's like, okay, and a lot of uptake is probably by ethnic minorities that they don't, they've heard so many different rumours, so they won't take the vaccine. We had this discussion with Tracy that, you know, animal products and everything. So it's trying to get over to our ethnic minority members of the public that it's safe to do so, that it's safe to have the vaccine. And it's those that we think probably aren't having the uptake and they're letting, they're letting themselves down. Thank you.
Right. Well, the times I did volunteer, it was for Chesterton and Kidsgrove areas, and there was, I think, possibly 2 or 3 that didn't turn up on the day. There was never any big numbers that didn't turn up on the day, so it may be a case of just getting through their age group. Like I say, we are now in the biggest crunch. There's like 65 to 70, and then 60s to 65s.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So the actual take up has been extremely well with those that have been called. So maybe Chesterton has a younger population. I know we always thought we'd got an older population, so I've seen the figures for Audley itself through the patients panel and that.
They're quite
we have
high,
done
aren't they?
extremely well. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. By the way, did you mean Dr. Sutton, Bert?
Didn't I say Dr. Sutton?
No, you said Dr. Turner.
Oh God, she's retired, man. No, I do apologize. I do apologise. Emma Sutton has done an amazing job. Absolutely wonderful. Sorry.
You realise it's going to be your next vaccination is going to be a blunt needle now.
No, she won't. She's my mate. She's all right. No, she's an incredible doctor.
I'll volunteer when it's your turn, Bert. I've got a 6-inch nail.
I'm going to do Councillor Gardner's and I'll be very gentle.
Have we any more serious comments or
No, thank
anything?
So, Councillor Moffat wants to say something.
Councillor Moffat, I've just seen you on the screen there.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say what a good job I thought the communications team at the Borough were doing in terms of sending those really constant messages out about being responsible, being safe. It's great to be able to have those things to reshare as a local councillor, on social media pages and on Twitter and what have you. So, please just to say to the team that those messages do get out, and it's really important that we keep on sending those messages out as well, particularly in light of what Councillor Cooper has just been informing us about. People get a little bit blasé and they need to be kept reminded. So thanks to that comms team doing a really great job on that.
I'll make sure that's passed on.
Yeah.
That's why we particularly like this strap line about the virus not moving, but people move it. I think that's probably one we shall be feeding through to the comms team to see if we can get that message out as well. Thank you.
We need a poster with Kitchener in it, putting up. Right, is that okay, everybody, with that one? Right, the next one should be extremely short because we should have already virtually got it sorted, which is the work programme.
Yeah.
Right, Denise, are you there?
Yes, hello.
What have we got on the work programme so far?
So as somebody mentioned earlier, we were thinking of the antisocial behaviour item coming to this meeting, but we didn't want to overload the officers and the agenda. So that's on the agenda for the 7th of June, which is our next meeting date. Plus, as we've heard, we'll have the update from the Parks and Open Spaces Scrutiny review. So we'll likely have the final report with recommendations from that scrutiny review. And then we thought for the 13th of September meeting to have an update from the Newcastle Housing Advice Service, how it's performing since coming back in-house, which I think happens in April. So those are the items for the next couple of meetings. If members have got anything else they think should be considered, then they're welcome to suggest things.
We're looking at on to.
And just the code.
We could probably fit a small one in. Hold on, wrong way. That's it. For the next one.
We just need a COVID update, which will be on every committee until we've actually got out of it, I think. Which I don't think we'll ever get out of it, but still.
I think you're right, Councillor Cooper. Yeah, we will have we'll meet with Tracy again before the next meeting, so we'll have a useful update on that. And I think maybe we could add to that with possibly if I get some other data about what we've been doing, you know, coming back to your point about the mystery shopper and things like that. Because we have obviously got our own COVID marshals around and about, so it might be useful for us to add that into it.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Nobody else got a small suggestion, or we're going to be happy with what we've got? No, okay, so we're happy with what we got. Work programme. I've got nothing here, but any public questions?
Not aware of any public questions, Chair.
That's good, because I wouldn't know how to work them on this tablet in any case. So I'd be saying, what you say? Right, in that case then, thank you for putting up with me. Technology and everything else. And thank you for turning up and coming for the meeting. And thank you for participating.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.